Today we are commemorating, and in a way also celebrating, but more of a commemoration, commemorating the important day that helped to change the course of our country in the struggle for freedom and democracy and human dignity. 66 years ago, more than 20,000 women representing black, white, young, old, urban, rural, who were mothers, who were daughters, who were our sisters, bravely marched to Pretoria to tell the apartheid Prime Minister, Strydom, that they would no longer be carrying dom passes. They carried reams and reams of petitions to go and deposit them at the union buildings. Bathi, mabefika lapho uStrydom wabalega, waphuma nge-back door wabalega, so that he would not be able to confront these women. They came as thousands from around the country, and they came in trains, in buses, on foot, and all of them going to the union buildings. Abanye babo bebephuma khona la, KwaZulu Natal, organized by great women leaders. Mama Dorothy Nyembe, Mama Fatima Mir, Mama Florence Mkhize, and others. There were also others from other provinces who were led by the giants of our struggle, like Mama Lillian Ngoyi, Sophie de Bruyn, Helen Joseph, Albertina Sisulu, and many others. Abanye bebephuma la KZN, they were stopped along the way. Bebebona laba be-apartheid amaphoyisa ukuthi kuzoba nengozi enkulu lapha e-union buildings. Babavimbela ukuthi bangaqhubeki ukuya e-union buildings, so they were stopped. But many did get to the union buildings, where they joined the march shouting their warning to the Prime Minister, bethi kuye Strydom, wathinta bafazi, wathinta imbokodo. Bathi basop uzakufa. Finish. Ngenxa yomzabalazo yabesifazane beka 1956, who were brave and who were determined and who were also prepared to make sacrifices. The women of South Africa today have attained a number of rights. They've attained a number of opportunities that their grandmothers, their great-grandmothers, and their great-grandmothers were denied for years and years. The struggle of the women of our country is not done yet. There is still a mighty struggle that still needs to be engaged. We still need to uplift the women of our country to a level where they are equal to men. In South Africa, however, today, we have made a lot of progress. The progress that we have made tells a story of how far we have come. In the past, we did not have the type of developments that we have in the form of the rights and the opportunities that women have today. In South Africa today, girls learn alongside boys in our primary and secondary schools and receive equal education. This never used to happen. Last year, more females passed matric exams and got more distinctions than their male counterparts. Okubonisa ukuthi abantu besifazane amantombazana yethu ahlakaniphe ukudlula laba bafana. Kuyabona kuyacaca kucacile impela ngoba uma sobala ama distinctions uwabala kahle o maths o science uzothola ukuthi amantombazana ahambela phambili laba abanye basahambela emuva. There are currently more female students enrolled at our universities and our colleges than males. Uma uya ema university, akhathali noma uya kwephi, uzothola ukuthi many of those who are registered are female students rather than male students. It shows a great deal of progress. Bekungayenzeki lokho in the past. Close on to half of our members of parliament are now female. When we come to our judges and our magistrates, more and more of them are female. And we now about to have a deputy chief justice who is a female for the first time in the history of our country. And she stands there as a role model. Role model, incoming Deputy Chief Justice Umaya, as a role model for all the young women, all the lawyers, where she demonstrates that yes, it is possible for anybody to reach that level. And I am sure, absolutely sure, that one day we are going to have a Chief Justice who is a woman. More than 60% of the public servants in our government system are women. In South Africa today, women are champions. Like Ibanyana Banyana, not Bafana Bafana, Banyana Banyana. They brought home their very first Women's Africa Cup of Nations trophy last week. And they happen to be women. Just as the pioneers of the Women's March of 1956 were the role models, the young women and the girls of today have no shortage of role models. Uma ngibuka nalapha, and I look at all of you as the women of our country gathered here. Many of you are role models. Many young women look up to you. If they can just come upstage here, banbuke nonke nihlezi lapha, bazobona ama role models. Where you are role models for the young girls of our country. And I urge you to keep on being role models. Ngoba sifuna ukukhuphula labantwana bamantombazana ukuthi nabo bakhuphuke baye phezulu. With the right support, they too can become anything they want to be. From star soccer players to fighter jet pilots. Niyakhumbula ngesikhathi se-inauguration, one of the women who was flying one of those fighter planes was a woman. And sonke, we were so impressed that we now have a number of women in our Air Force, in our Army, in our Navy, who are women. Engukuthandayo kakhulu on Armed Forces Day, ukubabona those women baphethe ibhamu ezinkulu, bedriver ama-truck amakhulu, bafake ne-lipstick yabo. Hayi ngithi hayi sambela phambili. There was a time when the Defense Force banned lipstick. Ngathi hayibo ngizawukhipha i-presidential order mayibuye leyo lipstick ukuthi on Armed Forces Day uma bephethe le ibhamu ezinkulu babonakala impela ukuthi one bahle bafake ne lipstick yabo and demonstrate that they are prepared to fight for this country. Siyababongela. So our young women today can be stars, they can be judges. The door is open. They can be members of parliament. They can be businessmen and businesswomen rather, and they can be entrepreneurs. But notwithstanding what I have said, ukuthi amasango, the doors are open. But for many young women, there are several obstacles they first have to overcome. Kunezinto nezizathu ezibavimbelayo ukuthi bangakwazi ukufika lapho bafuna ukufika khona. In South Africa, like in many countries around the world, women bear the brunt of poverty. And we often say that the face of poverty in our country is that of a woman. But more importantly, it is that of a black woman. And more importantly, it is that of an African woman. 3/4 of female-headed households live in poverty. The slow growth of our economy and the impact of COVID-19 has been particularly hard on women, on young people, and persons with disabilities. Lapha Richmond, la niphila khona, nearly half of all households are female-headed. Many families here are led by women. Since the advent of democracy, we have implemented policies to address the impact of poverty on women. Mothers and grandmothers have access to comprehensive social services, including child grant supports. To support poor families, especially those from single-parent households, learners are exempted from paying school fees and they receive meals at school. And when we talk about meals, people often forget ukuthi lo hulumeni wethu on a daily basis throughout the country we provide food to almost 9 million young people for 5 days every week. I know of no government on the continent that does that. So the government has initiated many programs to care for those who are vulnerable and those who are poor. Women are more likely to be unemployed than men. When we look at the unemployment figures, many more women are unemployed. Around half of all women in South Africa are unemployed, including those who have given up looking for work. On average, women still earn far less than men. This was shown or thrown into the spotlight with the victory of Banyana Banyana, and I spoke about this, where I found ukuthi, much as we applaud Banyana Banyana, imali abazoyithola is far less than what Bafana Bafana would get if they won the cup. And I said, kufanele ukuthi kupheliswe lokho, kube ne equal pay for equal work. Ngoba it makes no political, no economic, no social sense whatsoever that we remunerate men for equal work that they do with women and remunerate women far less. And lokho sesizakubheka ukuthi kube nomthetho. We must begin to demonstrate our seriousness about equality between men and women, and we are going to do it. Whether bayathanda amadoda noma abathandi kuzawenzeka. Nina niyakuthanda? Izwa uthi ayahlupheka amadoda, hayi ukuhlupheka abantu besifazane more. Women do not get paid for caring for the elderly. They do not get paid for caring for children and other family members. Bayafukuza ubusuku nasemini kodwa akukho abakutholayo okubonakalayo. So the time has come for us to pay unremunerated work, the work that women do. And the time that women spend doing work in the home limits their ability to earn money through employment or run their own businesses. Funa ukuthi nimamele kahle, nike nithule kancane nimamele. Ngoba lokhu kubalulekile. Uma sifanele ukuthi sixazulule le problem, sifanele ukuthi sazi sonke ukuthi what strategies and initiatives are we going to put in place? Ngoba it is a must that we must address this challenge that the women of our country are facing. Siyazi lapha eRichmond abantu abaningi baphelelwe imisebenzi. Abasebenzi nalapha eMngungundlovu we know ukuthi abasebenzi. There are limited opportunities, especially for young people. We also have the problem in this country of young girls being taken out of school early to perform household duties, to care for younger siblings, and to look for work to support the family. We need to change this so that young girls can finish schools. Umasibuka kahle sithola ukuthi amantombazane usually yibo abatshelwa ukuthi mabahlale ekhaya and abafana baqhubeke baye phambili. That too must change. Government is working to enable women to participate in the economy in a more meaningful way. Gender equality will not be achieved unless women are financially secure and independent. Here in Umgungundlovu District Municipality, we are providing temporary work opportunities to women through the Community Works Program, the expanded Public Works Program, and by supporting community caregivers and community health workers as well. Female entrepreneurs, especially small business owners, are supported through the province's rural and township economies revitalization strategy. Premier Law, Sugayo manje, Comrade Sihle Zikalala, has briefed me extensively about this program, and I know that the incoming Premier is also going to continue with this program. The provincial government, through the Radical Agrarian Socio-Economic Transformation Program, is also helping women access land for farming and get their produce to the market. So far, it has assisted over 3,500 farmers, with the majority of these farmers being women and young, and the majority of them also coming from rural areas like Umgungundlovu. Women entrepreneurs need companies. They also need departments and customers to buy their products and services. Government has committed to set aside 40% of public procurement spend to women-owned businesses. 40%. Kodwa lapha eKZN kwangathi izawufika ku 50%. And siyakubonga lokho. Now we've been holding workshops countrywide to equip and train abantu besifazane with skills to do business with government and the private sector. However, we saw that much as we had said 40% procurement should go to women-led businesses, we needed to do quite a lot of skills upgrading to assist them and to support them to get to that level. And this is the responsibility that we have taken as government, not just to put a policy in place, but to also ensure that yes, we are going to be supportive and we will ensure that the women of our country do get the skills. Between September this year and January next year, we plan to reach all 11 districts here in KwaZulu Natal with our training programs. To ensure better access to finance, we want entities like the Industrial Development Corporation, IDC, the PIC, and the National Empowerment Fund to make further resources available to women-owned businesses, because we don't want to have a situation where we say, here are opportunities, and yet there is no funding to help the women to capture those opportunities. Uma city now ama opportunities sifuna ukuthi abantu besifazane, they must be able to take them up and make sure ukuthi they become real. Kungabi into esikhuluma ngomlomo kuphela. Gender-based violence continues to be a stain on our celebrations today. Hardly a day goes by in South Africa without a report of women being attacked, being violated, or even being killed by men. And this cannot continue, and this has to stop. During COVID, I did say, Uguti, gender-based violence and femicide has become the second pandemic that we had to deal with. The women of South Africa have had enough of being afraid. They are afraid to go anywhere. They are afraid to go out after dark. Abantu abaningi besifazane bathi asikwazi ukuphuma uma ilanga selishonile. They are afraid of being attacked in their own homes. They are afraid of being preyed on in the classroom. They are afraid for the safety of their children, even from their own relatives. They are also afraid of being women in South Africa. A number of them have said it is a burden to be a woman in South Africa. We should not see this as a woman's problem, when it is in fact, this is in fact a problem, yamadoda. This is a man's problem, and it is a man-made problem. We as men are the ones who are causing these problems that make the women of our country to be afraid to walk in the streets, to walk in the pathways of our rural areas. It is a problem of men who have no respect for women, who feel that they can do whatever they like with their girlfriends or their partners because they buy them airtime, they buy them food, they buy them clothes or groceries. It is a problem of men who lack the maturity to accept the end of a relationship and hunt down their ex-wives or ex-girlfriends and even kill them in the process. It is a problem of men who think that culture, custom, and religion empowers them to hit their wives, their sisters, their daughters, and some of them to even hit their own mothers. and by so doing deprive them of their rights. It is a problem of men who hold positions of influence and authority. And I heard the young lady here was saying that abanye who hold positions of authority, uma umuntu wesifazane ufana ukuthi advance, they demand sex, they demand favors, because they happen to hold a position of authority. And this must come to an end. Taking advantage of women must come to an end. Here in Richmond, like in many places around the country, sexual assaults and other violent crimes are connected to alcohol abuse, and many take place in or around places where alcohol is sold. It takes place ematavenini, emashepinini, and that is where all these assaults happen. This is not the South Africa for which the women of 1956 marched. The women of 1956 marched so that all the women in our country can have their rights, and their rights must not be limited by an unjust regime or men who want to abuse women. They did not sacrifice to see the end of slavery, of the apartheid, only for today's women to live in prisons of fear. Earlier this year, we passed 3 important laws that will strengthen the fight against gender-based violence. These laws give greater protection to victims of domestic violence. The new laws empower the police to enter premises without a warrant, and if necessary, to arrest a suspect without a warrant. Police can also remove dangerous weapons from a suspect. Complainants will be able to apply for protection, a protection order online. Uye ku-internet uma unomuntu okuhluphayo wesilisa uthole i-protection order even online. New provisions expand the scope of the National Register of Sexual Offenders and place a legal responsibility on all to report any sexual offenses committed against vulnerable people. There are now far stricter conditions under which a suspect may be granted bail. Oh, mama betu, no sis betu, when we held the first summit, a gender summit, they were complaining, ukuthi labo abahlukumeza abantu besifazane, they get bail just very easily. A person commits rape and even murder, and they get bail easily. Now we have tightened up even the obtaining bail. Perpetrators will now get harsher sentences, much harsher sentences than before. Now we can say that silence is no longer an option. Umthetho omtsha manje uthi, if you know, if you saw ukuthi kunomuntu wesifazane who has been raped, umuntu wesifazane who has been assaulted, now the law says you can no longer remain silent. Ngoba if you remain silent kungaboshwa nawe futhi othulile. So manje sisonke, this has to be a societal fight against gender-based violence, because it is unacceptable ukuthi abanye bethu amongst us as citizens are continuously being abused by others. That has to come to an end, and we must therefore break the silence. Ukuthula kufanele ukuthi kuphele. Because silence is the dark corner in which women and children are abused, they are beaten, they are raped, they are killed. Ebumnyameni, in the dark. And that is where silence resides. Silence is the dark cloud under which men allow their friends to ill-treat women, to ill-treat children and members of the LGBTQIA+ community as a display of their manliness. Silence is the cancer that eats away at women who protect their husbands, their sons, their partners, and boyfriends who abuse them, their children, and other women because they are financially dependent on them. Abantu besifazane bavele bathi hayi noma engishaya nje ondla umndeni wethu unginika imali and uma ngamreporta ngizayithola phi imali ngoba huye osondlayo. That must come to an end. On this Women's Day, I want to call on every South African to play their part in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide by speaking out. And I want to say to the men of our country, if you are a father, would you want your daughters to be subjected to the violence, to the rape, or to the murder that many of the women of our country are subjected to? I am absolutely certain that all of us will say, no, we don't want that to happen. And do you want your mother, your wife to be subjected to that? We will all wholesomely say no. And that is why I call upon all of us as South Africans, especially as men, which I have done repeatedly, that we need to treat the women of our country with respect, with dignity, and with recognition. In 2021, we introduced a 100-day challenge to pilot interventions to fast-track the provision of services to survivors of gender-based violence. In the sites, kulezo ndawo where we introduced this challenge, there has been a great deal of progress and success because we have seen reduction in offenses or cases where they have reduced by 42%. And the backlog has also reduced by almost 80%. And survivors of gender-based violence are able to access legal and psychosocial support services more easily. In November, we will hold the second presidential summit on gender-based violence and femicide, where we will do a detailed assessment of the implementation of what we decided at the first gender-based violence summit. And we will look at how far we have implemented the National Strategic Plan and chart a way forward. We gather here today to mark Women's Day, deeply aware of the many challenges that the women of South Africa confront every day. We gather here as well knowing that poverty, discrimination, and violence continues to hold back the progress of the country's women and girls. If there is anything that's holding back your progress as the women of our country, yes, it is violence, but it is also poverty. But we also gather here to celebrate the achievements of many South African women from all parts of the country, from all walks of life, who have in many ways overcome enormous obstacles to excel in their chosen fields. I was at a function the other day which was convened by the International Women Judges Association, and where they were honoring our Deputy Chief Justice designate, Justice Maya. And she spoke very, very passionately about the suffering that the women of our country are going through. And she detailed, in great detail, set out the various areas in which the women of our country are really bearing a heavy burden. But she ended her speech by saying, by quoting Mrs. Obama's speech somewhere, where she said that much as all this is happening, we cannot be held back by pessimism. We must remain optimistic and continue to struggle for better progress, for the attainment of better rights for the women of our country. And that is the approach that we should have. We must recognize the challenges that the women of our country are going through, but at the same time, we must continue the struggle. We must not be pessimistic. We must be optimistic and know that the struggle that was waged by the 20,000 women of 1956 was not wasted. The sacrifices they paid were not wasted, and we will, as the women of South Africa, triumph and succeed one of these days. And that is the commitment that we have. We gather here, sisonke, we say, we will spare no effort to build a non-sexist society in which men and women have equal opportunities and prospects. The women who marched on the Union buildings 66 years ago demonstrated the power and the resolve of the women of South Africa. They were determined that women should take their rightful place in a free and democratic society. And as we honor their bravery, and as we commemorate the enormous struggle that they waged, let us continue their struggle. Let us achieve their vision. Progress is being made on an ongoing basis. And I'm able to say this progress is even going further down even to organizations. Organizations that now have embraced the issue that yes, there must be equal representation in the structures of various organizations. Saying,